All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Deer Gear Podcast. Listen, I apologize. I have been MIA for a few weeks here, but it's for good reason. Exodus has some really exciting things coming down the pipeline that has taken most of my bandwidth. We haven't had an episode for the last couple weeks, so I apologize for that. But we're back today with a really good episode featuring Dorge and Jeremy Martin. You guys have heard them both here on the podcast before, but today we decided to have a little bit of fun, and I ran these guys through some scenarios, acting as if I were a brand new customer, and gave them my bow specs and said, build my arrow. What's this going to come out to be, and what are you going to recommend for me? So if you are curious to hear how these guys will set people up based off of their specs, draw length, point weight, whether or not they're shooting a lighted nock, that was a key to a lot of the builds that Jeremy was doing, and he always would ask that question, are you shooting a lighted nock or not? Stick around to hear why he was asking that question and what shooting a lighted nock does to the flight of your arrow. Also, before we get into this episode, some really exciting news. Exodus has officially launched the upgrade program. We did this program last year, and it was a ton of fun to see what kind of old trail cameras you guys had laying around and that you were trading in to upgrade. So how it works is you can upgrade your trail camera game from any camera, working or not. So if you have a camera that has just been laying in your garage that doesn't power on, that maybe's missing a door, just for whatever reason doesn't work, or you have a camera that does work and maybe it's a standard SD card camera and you want to upgrade to a cell camera, or it's a cell camera that you just aren't very happy with, you don't like the app or you don't like the way the data plans are structured. Either way, you can trade that camera in to us here at Exodus and receive 25% off any Exodus cell camera or cell camera package. So it's a really great opportunity to save some money, to see what the Exodus Advantage is all about. But if you're not familiar with that, which I'm sure you are if you're listening to that, but real quick, every Exodus cell camera is backed by the industry-leading 5-year no BS warranty that includes theft and damage coverage. Every Exodus camera or camera package is going to be supported by the best customer service in the industry, hands down, and you're going to get a damn good cell camera that just flat out works. So if you have been wanting to try one of these Exodus cell cameras and you just have been on the fence, and now is a really great time to try it out, save 25%. Go to the website, exodusoutdoorgear.com, and place any trail camera or trail camera package, whether it's the Render or the Rival, in your cart and use the code UPGRADE. Once we get that order, we will send you an email with a return label to send your old camera back to us. Once we get your old camera, we will send you your new Exodus Render or Exodus Rival. So it's a really great program, and we have no doubt you will enjoy your upgraded cell camera. With that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in this week. Let's hear from Dorge and Jeremy, and let's build some Exodus arrows. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Deer Gear Podcast. Today, the archery experts that I am joined by are none other than Dorge Huang from Firenock, and I have Jeremy Martin. He's been on the podcast a few times now from X-Ring Custom Arrows. How's everyone doing today?
Beautiful, thank you.
Pretty good.
Glad to have you guys here with me today. Always enjoy talking to the both of you. It's always a pretty good conversation when the three of us link up. So last time was when Harrisburg 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think that is the case when Jeremy was kind enough to sit with us.
Yeah, I think that was kind of Jeremy and I's introduction. And now Jeremy, for everyone listening, Jeremy actually builds a lot of the custom built arrows from Exodus. So if you ordered a set of Exodus MMTs, there's a good chance that Jeremy was the fellow that built them. And that says a lot, because when you talk to Dorge about arrow builders, it's always, what does Jeremy have to say? Or Jeremy, he's the man, he's the man. So you guys are getting arrows built by the best.
Absolutely. Jeremy had built enough, and then when he talked to enough of his customer, the feedback is making him one of the hands-on experts in today's world. It's pretty hard to find.
What do you think about that, Jeremy?
Counts.
That's big shoes to fill.
Thank you for the kind words, but I don't know that I'm the best or an expert. I just like what I do.
Well, that's important. That's important. So today, guys, what I want to do is there's always like one of the things when someone goes through to order an arrow, you kind of have some questions to ask them, like what bow are you shooting, what draw weight, what draw length, what point broadhead, what do you want to do with the arrow? Do you want to hunt elk? Do you want to shoot 3D? Do you want to shoot target? So I have like 5 or 6 scenarios where I'm going to say I'm a customer, and then I'm going to give you guys this scenario, and then you guys are going to build me an arrow, break down the specs, carbon to carbon length, fletchings, the whole 9 yards. You guys cool with that?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So when I do this, who wants to go first, or do you want to switch every other time?
I think switch every time would be better, because then we in some case I would prefer not listen to what Jeremy will say. I think Jeremy's vice versa, and see how good we are in each other. But since we can't do that now, but I would do my best. I would think about it. I would stick to my formula when you say that. That would make it more fun.
All right. And just for all intents and purposes for this podcast reasoning, I do work for an arrow manufacturer, so all the shafts are going to be the same. All the shafts are going to be Exodus shafts. So components and all of that are going to.
Hey, then how the hell do you do 3D? Oh, you can. Yeah, you can push that. Yes, you can.
well, if for target, obviously it's going to be different. In 3D, it can be different as well. But for
a lot of people do shoot the 246 for the target. It can be done, but you said ideal. Just like people who are not very good at shooting, they prefer bigger shafts.
Sure.
To cut the line,
listeners, keep that in mind. But just I don't want to be selling other people's arrows on the podcast. So let's run through the first scenario. And this is me. So Dorge, I talked to you a little bit about this. I got a new bow. So we're going to build an arrow for my new bow. I bought an Hoyt RX7. It's set to 70 pounds. I have a 27.5-inch draw, and I am primarily a whitetail hunter that will do a little bit of elk hunting. And I'll also shoot a little bit of 3D. Build me my arrow.
Well, that would be pretty straightforward. I would go with the MMT 300 spine. I will cut the arrow at about 20. You say your drawing is 27 and a half?
27 and a half.
Yeah, I'll cut the arrow at 27. I would, because you do say elk. Without elk, I would use aluminum. With elk, I will put a little bit stainless in it. I will use the AIH24S, which is the double shoulder insert with a chamfer. Then with a 6-inch insert, arrow wing. How far? One of the quick question. What broadhead are you going to use?
Let's say I'm going to shoot a fixed blade head.
Name the brand and size, because fixed blade head don't mean anything.
Yeah, I'll shoot the Afflictor K2 Fix, which is a 4-blade 1.125 cut.
Okay, I would go with the Arrowwing 2, most probably about 3/8 inch from the back. Since you got a little bit bigger, got 1/2 inch from the back. I will use the Firenock Arrowwing 2. That's pretty much my setup. That should give you everything you needed. That arrow is very effective all the way to 80, 90 yards with no issue. That's what I would go with.
That shaft, just for everyone listening, at 300 spine is 9.8 grains per inch. So
correct.
That build will come out to be in the 440 range.
Correct, because of stainless insert. And because of the similar use of 100 grain. And then, of course, you can shift it a little bit to 125, but that's not needed. I mean, that combination would be my number one approach. Yes, I would like it to be about a little bit shorter for the draw length, because it is a Hoyt. If it's the Matthew, I may go with a little bit longer, but then of course it's an RX7, so you do have a true binary can be deal with. Your horizontal nut travel will suffer a tiny bit, but then if your arrow rest is truly on the node, that won't make that big a difference.
Sure.
So you got enough space for the node.
And so you're thinking
that would be my build.
You're thinking 27 inches carbon to carbon is going to put me on the node.
Correct, because you can use the original Hoyt, the fuse, we call the fuse name with the QAD rest. That should put you right about close to 1.25 inches from the burger button, which means that at 27 inch, it should put you right on the node with where the arrow rest prong is.
Okay. Jeremy, before we go to yours, one thing that I just thought of that we can mention is we're working on this 204 shaft. So if that 204 shaft comes into play and you would rather have a 204 over a 246 for a certain setup, we can use that one as well. So
the 204 is not going to be better than a 246 in this application because you're dealing with Hoy with the binary cam. That thicker wall of the 204, although the material is faster, the 204, the 246 will have a slight advantage over it. If it's a Matthew, I'll definitely go with the 204. But you say the Hoy, the binary cam bow with the horizontal knock travel, definitely the 246.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to mention it. Like as we get into these builds down the road, I have some other ones that might be a little bit different. So we have that shaft to work with as well. I don't want to limit you guys just to one shaft here. All right, Jeremy, you're up. Same setup.
I would probably have to agree with if I had the 204, I'm just a 204 junkie. So I would go with the 204 aluminum for the half outsert, 6 inches of carbon, arrow vane 2, and that would give you, if you wanted to do a dual setup, you can put, if you want a flatter flying arrow, you can put the 100 grain in for elk. And then if you're going to be shooting 30, 40 yards for whitetail and you wanted a little bit more weight, you can go to a 125 or 125 for both. It wouldn't really matter. I think that's a pretty stellar setup. And I do the same thing. I'd probably cut you 27. Yeah, probably 27, maybe 26 and 3/4, depending on where
your arrow rest setup,
the arrow rest, and also how you like your blades, where you like them to be located at. Close. Do you care if they're close to your hand or not? I know some guys like them, a foot in front of their hand. So
sure. While we're on that, I mean, like talking about length, because Jeremy, I thought you'd come in shorter. I thought you'd recommend a shorter arrow. So, what would be? I mean, both of you guys said 27, maybe 26 and 3/4, and the goal is to put this arrow on the node. Now, let's say, just for instance, we don't have arrow concept, and that point comes that inch and a half part of the node forgiveness goes away. What is the ideal arrow length in that scenario? Is it still going to be that 27 inches?
No, it's going to be 27 and a half to 27 3/4 now. Because see, your burger button, based on the arrow, without the arrow concept, especially with a short head, will really, really put the note more critical. And when you deal with a Hoyt with a binary cam, it is critical.
So we're thinking arrow concept allows you to shoot a shorter arrow, is basically what
Not
you're
just
saying.
that, you make you a shorter, more responsive arrow. Compared without arrow concept, your note become more and more defined and more critical and more less forgiving. And that's the reason that arrow had to be longer. But at the same time, being longer arrow with the Hoy, you're gonna have more stress. And then of course with the RX7, you got 85 and 80% off. Nearly every single guy I saw have an 85 let off point, which is, I don't like high let off because it proved that the distant deprivation of arrow is significant.
Yeah. I'm gonna put mine on 80. I wish there was a 75% for that, but I'll be 80 all day. Anything else to add there, Jeremy?
You were talking just about the node and with and without the arrow concept. Without the concept, it becomes a very finite point on the shaft. So, like Dorge was saying, you lose a lot of your forgiveness because it's very dependent on where that node lies. Granted, we are, for lack of better words, we're just taking our best educated guess doing this, because if you really wanted to get down to brass tacks and do it to where you're dead on it, you'd have to spend some money, just because you'd have to take time, cut the shaft, and then find it and make sure it's set up to your arrow rest. If you don't have, like the new Matthews that I just picked up, you don't have any adjustment. You can't go forward, back with the rest. It is what it is.
Right.
So you got to adjust the arrow to the rest. So
exactly. I mean, when I look at the new Matthew on using the new air rest system, that forward backward movement's gone. In other words, if your arrow is not cut right on the node, you're screwed. You can't get the arrow to perform. And most people don't understand. I mean, that's the reason when I design some of the arrows, I make sure you got enough forward backward adjustment, especially with 90% of bow today, which is what we call recessed bow. The recessed bow is defined as the grip is behind the limb pocket bolts. So the arrow, the bow by its own design is trying to flip. That's the reason the reverse recess design is not ideal. But then at the same time, when you go to arrow rests that do not let you move, you have no adjustment on the node if you cut the arrow wrong. I mean, that's just no way around it.
Right. Yeah. You, like Jeremy said, you can spend a lot of money trying to cut shafts to make it work. Because when you, like, as we talk about this, the node will move as the length of the arrow changes, and how much insert weight you have or how much broadhead weight you have, you can manipulate where that node is placed. So you really have to tinker a lot, or just use arrow concept and have that forgiveness. With that being said, with arrow concept and the node being elongated, is it better to be towards the front, towards the back, or right in the middle of the elongated node?
Absolutely in the middle, because see, the whole difference between the arrow concept without it is the entire angle. I mean, just like we talk about the from a tuna to the macro to an eel, the angle becomes significant with our arrow concept. The arrow concept allow you to be off without major consequences. Ideal is still ideal, just like a center is the center is the center.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So that's when you hear these guys talk about what length they're going to cut the arrow, that is based off of where they are projecting is going to put you on the node. So if your arrow or bow setup matches mine or matches any of these scenarios, that is what your ideal arrow length is going to be. So next scenario here, this, I don't know. I mean, this is almost more towards what Jeremy's going to be at, but the poundage is going to be different. So I'm shooting a Matthews Phase 4, and I am a 29-inch draw, and I'm shooting 60 pounds. And I like to hunt elk and whitetails, and I'm going on a bear hunt this year. I need an arrow that is going to be suitable for all three of those. Jeremy,
What's your shooting distance? Shooting distance have not been set, and broadhead have not set. Those two make it critical.
All right, so let's go with let's make this one. Let's say this guy's gonna shoot a. Do we want to do a mechanical or a fixed on this one?
For the bear, you really don't make the black bear. That's really not critical. But the distance of where the bait pile is, unless he's stalking, now that's a whole different story.
Sure. Okay. Let's go with a 1.5 inch mechanical head. You pick the broadhead, and the
let's
max.
Go with the rage.
Okay, yeah, it's popular, and we'll go max distance 60 yards, and then for the bear hunt, we'll say max distance 30 yards.
Okay, Jeremy, go for it.
All right, so I got a Phase 4 29-inch draw, 60 pounds. Wanting to go hunting for elk, whitetail bear, mechanical rage, 60-yard max range. Let off.
We're gonna go 85%. That's the majority of people.
I know.
Definitely the majority of people. Whenever I ordered that Phase 4 and I told them I wanted 80% mods, they looked at me like I was silly.
Yeah, they come stock. They come stock with 85.
Yeah. So I had to pay extra for 80s. 60 pounds, 85%. Do you have a goal weight in mind?
No, whatever you're gonna suggest.
Okay, so just throw out what I want. 60 yards mostly. This one I would probably do a 246 MMT.
Okay.
Since your max range is 60 yards, that's on an elk.
Yeah.
I would assume. I would pretty much build what Dorge built in a 350 spine and cut you at probably 28 and a quarter carbon to carbon.
Okay.
Are you running a lighted knock?
Yeah.
You are running a lighted knock?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, that makes it even better. So I'd give you aluminum, 350 spine, 28 and a quarter. Yes.
Aerovane 2?
Of course.
Okay. So
I'm pretty much right. You're pretty much the same with me. The only difference I would be is that I would go stainless. I would go stainless for one reason, because when he do a bear, assuming then brown bear only, not black bear only. The moment you go brown bear, you're going to need the extra 25. So from 100 to 125 with the stainless will be much better if it is a brown bear. Black bear only, Jeremy set up perfect. I don't see any change.
So Jeremy, why did you ask about the lighted knock? What's that change?
That's gonna kind of change the front of center of the front of center of the arrow. Not that that matters to me, because I really don't care. But you're going to get flatter flight. So if you are shooting a lighted knock, then I would tend to agree with Dorge. You can go ahead and throw a little bit heavier front end on there, and
because that's balancing and back out, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then not to mention it's a 350 spine. And then I would go, you say 27-inch draw, I would go with a 27-inch arrow.
29.
29. Oh, definitely 28 and a half, because it's a Matthew. And right now for that bow, assuming the guy is using the Matthew rest, then actually I would go with like a 29 and a quarter inch arrow because of that node. That place you do not have any chances. So by putting a heavier point, the arrow going to flex a little bit more, so that the lighter knot will balance it out. In fact, you cause the arrow trajectory much flatter. Yes, you think about it. You think people will think that putting weight on the back, the arrow will fly. Yes, the arrow drop faster, but the arrow trajectory is flatter.
Okay.
Just presently, in some cases, a lot of people don't understand a lighter knot weight on the high level bow is actually beneficiary.
Yeah. So
cause the recovery to be faster.
Right. Yeah, it's more balanced there.
So your two node, the node for the front node, the back, they're going to now maintain a better point than you expected.
All right. So you went a quarter inch longer than the draw length with that one?
Yes, definitely. Because the Matthew rest cannot move. You see, if you got something like my air rest, you can move it all the way back to 1.5 inches. Remember this one, when you don't have a node, you want to tune it. It's easier to cut. You can't add.
Sure, right.
The worst thing you do is that you just go and reflect your vanes. I mean, yes, you may want to do 2 or 3 of them because you do have the Firenock end cap inside. You also have the vane to reflect, but at least it's doable. But when you want to add a quarter of an inch, where do you find that quarter? You can't.
Yeah, right. You can't move it.
So that's the reason for some of my customers who are more very, very, how do I say that, opinionated, I usually only build them 3.
Sure.
Yeah, when you build them 6, well, I would prefer 1/2 inch shorter or 3/4 inch longer. I mean, what do you do now? He just spent perfect money on, say, a dozen arrow. Now you want an arrow to be, say, 1/2 inch shorter. You still can do it, but how about 3/4 inch longer?
Yeah, can't do it.
Especially without arrow concept. What do you do now?
Yeah, buy new arrows.
And now when you say that the customer come to me, he just spent all the money on a whole set of Eastern expensive shafts. You just look at them, say, you wanted that size, but it was not what I wanted.
All right, so I got 3 more to run through here, and then we'll just build on it. So the next one's going to be a funny one, Dorge. You'll get a kick out of it. So we got a customer shooting a prime inline. He has a 31-inch draw, and he's shooting 80 pounds, and he likes to hunt elk and whitetails, and he's shooting a iron will broadhead that's 150 grains. The let's say max distance is 60 yards again, because he's going to hunt elk.
Okay, it's an old inline which they had to change the name. That bow actually behaves very much like an elk because that inline is only inline when the bow is in full draw. The entire bow again will behave more like, actually in some cases worse than RX-7. So the bow is very shocking. For him, right on the get-go, AMT 250, there's no way around it. Actually, if I build it myself, I would say I would use an arrow with 300, if not 300, 200 with it. Because see, that 31-inch straw, 80 pound, push the arrow parabolic action significantly. And then with the iron wheel head, you pretty much have to rely, I mean, in most cases, want something like that, I would tell them, ship me the head. I will align the broadhead on the spine before I glue the insert. Of course, it's very difficult. I usually have to put the Firenock concept system in, take the insert out, or I would just prefer putting titanium spacer and tune his head. Because the iron wheel is the two-blade head. That itself on the launch cycle have a lot of aerodynamic effect when it launches. Aero Concept 2.0 with the MMT 250 is going to help. But that is really not a great setup, especially with the 85% mic, with the 80% let off, by 80 pounds. And then you pretty much need the whole 31-inch, if not more. I mean, if I have to build it myself, I would have put in something like a 10.5-inch ID inside tube on a 250. That will pretty much do the job. I know if Jeremy is doing it, oh my God. I mean, sorry, Jeremy is going to get his own. If I'm as good as Jeremy building Aero Concept 2.0, that will be a 6-inch on the back. And yes, Aeroving 2.0, that will be it.
Okay. Yeah, and that's all fair game. So that's a setup that's tough to build, and our arrow might not work out totally great for it. So there might be a better option.
No, it will. The 250 will work, except it will require a lot of skill. And I just don't have the tenacity and the what you call it, patience like Jeremy do building the 2.0, because that is definitely according for a 2.0 setup on the 250.
Well, let's hear it, Jeremy.
That's it. I mean, I would do the 246 and the 250 spine. And are you running a lighted knock?
No.
Okay. Well, then yes, I would definitely go 6 inches of carbon in the back. So I'd make it an Aero Concept 2.0, and I'd give it an aluminum insert, 6 inches up front. 31-inch draw, like you said, you're going to be like nipping the ends off, and that's about it. Definitely Aerovane 2, and I would do the indexing. I've tried to do it. I have patience, like Dorge says, when it comes to building arrows. But the whole, like getting the broadhead aligned perfectly with no spacers takes that much longer. And to be honest, I think I'm pretty cheap on, well, if I'm building for my customers, I'm pretty cheap on my labor. So I would rather just make it a lot easier on myself and use the spacer kits rather than, index with, like Dorge was saying, take the insert out and all that. I'd much rather just use the spacers.
What do the spacers do? I'm not familiar.
So they're made out of titanium, and they are 9 millimeters in diameter, and all they are different thickness washers. If I could get off the camera, I've got a pile of them sitting right over there.
Yeah, go ahead.
There.
Is this something you developed, Dorge?
Of course. See, what happened is that when you remember, I developed a whole bunch of 2-blade heads. The daggers. The daggers have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I make 9 different daggers, 10 now. But see, being a dagger is a 2-blade system. I will repeat, you must align it from a 12 o'clock position when you launch it. Because that's the way that when a high let off bow, even all the new bow today with a 2-blade, if you are not indexed and index the blade with the spine, the blade with the high let off is going to catch the wind, and you have all kind of tuning issues. Yeah. Now, what happened is that when you put the broadhead into the insert, you're going to have different angles. Now you figure that out. I make them from 0.1, 0.2, 0.25, 0.3. If you think about it, if 1 inch, the thread of the thread of a normal AMA standard broadhead is 32. So that means a full 32 turn will give you 1 inch. So when I make a 0.1 millimeter spacer, of course, when you make 0.1, you end up with 0.095, but 0.0095 and 0.11 or the 105. That's going to be variance. So when you add that to it, it'll give you about 25 to 30 degree increase per 0.1 millimeters.
Okay.
So you can just add them together. So your blade says 45 degree. A 0.1 and a 0.25 will give you to add that extra 45 degree. Will that be absolute? No, because spacer itself have thickness variance and have die cut variance. So you're going to play with it until you get it. That's the reason I make all the sizes. And sometimes when you stack, say, 2.1 and 125 should be 0.45. It do not equal to 0.45. That's where the playing come into play. You have to play with it, but you'll be close enough. Sure. Especially when you get a pack of 0.1 and 0.25, 0.25, correct.
Jeremy,
so I've got a pile of them here. So I've got everything. I am actually out of 10,000s. So I've got from 20,000s all the way up to 50 or 0.50.
Right. Remember, those are millimeters.
Yeah, not
thousands.
Sorry.
People think thousands, but you know what? That's where the problem is.
Yeah.
They are not 10,000s. They are. Remember, 1 inch is 25.4 millimeter, and it is 0.1 of it. So each of them is about 2,500, 2.54 thousands. So you need to start playing with it and get the numbers.
Sure. So show me how it works here.
I don't play with numbers. I just know this is a 0.20 millimeter spacer, and here is a 0.50. I threw them on the scale. The 0.20 was a half a grain, because folks always get all bent out of shape about that, and the 0.50 was 1.1 grains. Okay. So if I have to screw this 1.1 grain extra on one of your arrows, and that's it, just one, and the rest of them line up perfectly, if you can tell me there's a difference without looking at the arrow, you better start shooting ASA, because Levi Morgan's in trouble. I mean, that's all there is to it. If you're that good, you best be getting on the ASA trail.
So that spacer goes on the broadhead?
Yes.
I'm looking on the threads of the broadhead.
Okay. Yep, I've got broadheads right here. So right here, we're looking at a tooth of the arrow wide, and then it just slides down over the.
And that'll change the alignment. So you can have the insert already glued into the shaft and then be able to do it that way, rather than
most certainly
turning the. Okay, I've always wondered how Chad and I talked about how you would do that, and I never really knew how, because for ourselves, like, we don't shoot 2-blade heads, so it's not that big of a deal. But if we wanted to index our heads, how would we do it? And we were like, well, I don't know, because we're building the front of the arrows first. Well, there's your answer.
Right. I mean, I've even had guys, he's super meticulous guy, down in Southern Ohio, and he was shooting Levi's Swackers, his brand or his signature series, and he wanted the blades vertical. And I'm like, you really don't need to worry about it, because it's an expandable and that wing is so small. And he's like, nope, I want them vertical. So that's what we did. I mean, I think I only had to do it on 3 of the 6, because you can sit there and, what I normally start doing is use no spacers and just take broadhead 1 on arrow 1 through 12. And if one of them lines up, there it is. And then I move on to the next one, and I get them all. If I can't get them all that way, then that's when I start adding spacers in.
All right. So for anyone listening, if you are shooting a 2-blade head and you have a dozen or half dozen Exodus arrows and your broadheads aren't aligned, there's your solution. All right. You guys ready I got 2 more of these.
Uh-oh.
Go for it.
All
Shoot.
right. So this one is a PSE Omen. And
which year? It's
uh
different design.
23.
The new one.
Yep, the new one.
23. Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
And we are shooting 60 pounds. We have a 26-inch draw. And this fella is only a whitetail hunter. He only wants to shoot whitetails. Max distance, we'll say 40 yards. And that's like max. He's shooting let's make this one easy. He's shooting a swing blade.
Ooh, that's easy. Go. I think it's Jeremy's turn.
It is. Let's see here. 60 pounds, 26-inch draw. What is his let off? Because I know them bad boys can go up to 90.
Let's go 90 then.
Okay.
And then, so
Sorry.
we'll go 90, and then we'll go to the opposite end of the spectrum and go 80 and see how the arrow build changes. So build the 90.
PSC have 65% mod. You can buy those.
Okay.
Really, a lot of my customers love those, especially on the new Mark 34. You can get the 65% mod. I mean, that's a fantastic setup for Western unders.
We'll go with we'll go with 90 and then
Let's do both.
70.
I mean,
Yeah,
we'll show you what both would mean.
Yep. So then we'll see how the arrow changes.
100 grain head.
Yeah.
So, all right. Omen, 60 pounds, 26-inch draw, 90% let off, 40-yard max, 100 grain swing blade. I'd put him in the. See, that doesn't matter to me. I would actually leave this preference up to the customer if he would want the Exodus 204 or the MMT. I would leave that up to him. I would go. He's gonna need some weight in the arrow, regardless of, because 60 pounds, we're gonna have to put him in a 350 aluminum for sure. And I would probably leave that arrow as long as I could. 26 inches, you're getting down there. You're starting to. Granted, he's only a 40-yard max, but you're losing a bunch of energy. You're losing it quicker because that arrow is so short. So I would, if I did anything, maybe 25 3/4 on the carbon aluminum, 6 inches lighted knock.
Yeah, we'll say yeah.
Okay. I might throw just a little bit of carbon in the back to give him that little bit extra weight. But the 350 spine, that's a lot more complicated than any of the other ones that you've thrown out there because it's 60 pounds.
Right.
But Omen is supposed to be it's a ripper of a bow. I mean, it'll launch them out there pretty good. And the 90% let off, that's another bugaboo that's in there. So yeah, I'd go with the 350 aluminum, 6 inches up front. Lighted knock. You can run an Aerovane 3 on that one. No. I'd keep him at an Aerovane 2.
Too slow.
His speed's not going to be up enough to allow that 3 to do its job. So yeah, there you go.
So one question before Dorge goes, you said like you want weight in this arrow, you got to put weight in this arrow, but you went with the lightest insert. Why is that?
Well, I guess we could go with a stainless to break that 350 spine down a little bit. So that probably would be a good idea to go with a stainless or jump up to 125 grain swing blade.
Sure. And you could even do both, right?
Yeah, you could do both. Since your max is 40 yards, you can that's a fast enough bow even at 60 pounds and 26 inches. You ought to be able to hit a deer with one pin if you practice.
Sure.
Not 1 week after the season or before the season, get your bow out and start shooting.
Dorge, any changes?
I go a little bit different. Actually, I have 2 setups because based on 90% mod and then that's a 65% mod. On the 90% mod, it's easy. I'm going to go with the 350, 16 in the front aluminum arrow wing 3, and I most probably go with a 75 grain point on the swing blade, because that setup is really will make that omen rip. You're going to shoot about 320 with even 26-inch straw at 60 pounds, because the arrow is going to be a hover around 330 grain.
Yeah, it's going to be light. Yep.
Right. So if the guy told me he's going to shoot a 65% of mark, that's easy. I would drop the whole thing to the arrow to the 400 spine shaft with the aluminum insert, and still, depending on your shooting skill, I would go, because it's 26-inch, I will go on that. I will go with the 25.5-inch arrow with a 75 grain field point, and then 6 inches the front. And then we use everything 2 with it, because it'll be forgiving. But with that 90% mod, I'm going to go everything 3 with for sure 75 grain. That whole system will rip and take the benefit of that. The most critical part for this difference and everything else is part of the 26-inch straw length. You need to push, because the arrow will recover so fast. I mean, yeah, if I go with the 204, it will not recover that good. The 246 is going to be better because of wall thickness. The moment you go to 400, it's going to be lighter, more responsive. And that bow setup has merit. But then, of course, the 350 is going to be a more durable setup over the 400. You can see Jeremy's me thinking it's a little bit different. I'm looking for that speed. Of course, I still think that the 65 would, just like Jeremy said, is going to give you a much, much, much longer forgiveness shot of one pin. The 90% of actually going to give you less, because the arrow deprivation is going to significant. That's the reason you go Aero Concept 2.0. That recover that faster. But that's a much more complicated build.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
In my defense, not that I'm making excuses, I didn't know a 400 spine was in play, because then that would have been a whole lot easier for me.
Yeah.
But the 400 spine won't work on that 90% mod, you know.
Is that how it changes for you?
That's going to be rough.
Is that how it changes for you, Jeremy? If you go to 65 pound, you drop the spine to 400 or 65%?
I mean, if I had the chance of the 400 spine, I would from 90 to 95% let off to 65% let off. I would go from a 2.0 build on the 90, and then a 1.0 build on the 65.
So why not 2.0 in both of them? Because of the labor and just you don't get anything out of it?
I mean, you could. I mean, that really depends on the guy, because you're going to be picking up speed with the 65% let off mod as well over the 90.
Sure.
And it's not as violent, so that's why I would, you could take the 2.0 and the extra charge if the guys, because let's face it, that a lot of guys don't like to spend a pile of money on arrows, but they'll spend a pile of money on a bow.
Yeah.
Which, in my eyes, I'd rather. Although I can't say that, because
so you just bought a new bow.
I buy new bows every year, man. They have a word. I have an addiction, and it's bows.
Better than beer.
You're damn right. I do have another one. It's energy drinks. I drink the hell out of them. So,
Dorge, let me ask you this.
Too. Mine is different. I'm this.
Dorge, let me ask you this. Does your arrow build, or maybe it's just the broadhead that changes, but if the guy wasn't just a whitetail hunter and he wanted to hunt a thicker gamed animal, let's use, I don't want to use a pig. That's too
No,
drastic.
the pig is dramatic. I mean, pretty much you would say the guy is going for a kudu. Okay, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
The kudu is pretty much like a Volvo to a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. Well, let's use, I guess, an elk. Does the broadhead weight change for you if he's wanting to hunt an elk?
Elk is super soft. Elk and moose are actually softer animal than whitetails, unless it's a fawn. and old whitetail is pretty rough on the meat. I mean, the North American deer class animals are pretty easy. The moment you go into pig, that's a whole different ballgame. I mean, I built a lot of arrows for customers who say, I mean, to be frank with you, the most difficult projectile at the build is for giraffe. Because you're shooting the third heart and you got 10 to 12 inch of skin to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, 10 inch of skin, okay? How thick is a whitetail skin?
Not much.
3 inch?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. All right, last one. Well, yeah, I'll do a bonus one after this. So this one should be fairly short though. So we have an expedition reflection, which I just looked up a bow with an IBO of like 345. So I wanted something that was shooting really fast. And he's shooting 75 pounds, 28.5-inch draw. He has 80% let off. And he's shooting a Magnus Buscut head, and it's a 125 grain broadhead, and he is a strict Western hunter, mule deer, elk, and he shoots some 3D.
Okay, that's the 3D is where the problem is. Go ahead.
That reflection, I don't know much about it.
It's very much like the expedition. It's a binary. It's look like a 2.5 cam system.
Okay. Speed. What was the speed on that?
It was 345 IBO, I believe.
Okay, so
yeah, but you're 75 pounds, so you know the speed is going to be closer to 360 on the 450 grain arrow. No, 300 and let's see, 80, 75. That would be 300 and under 400 grain arrow.
Or you could do this. You could do an APA King Cobra, if you're more familiar with that bow.
No, we'll say the expedition.
Okay.
So max distance. You say Western hunters; those guys can get, they can stretch them.
We're going 80 yards.
80 yards.
Yep.
Oh boy. Let's see. For me, it's, and I'm going not purely off of what I would do, but I know the Western guys, they are big on 204s and 166 shafts. I like the 204. I know lots of people have other opinions. So I would do a 204. I would cut him at 28 inches. I would give him, he's right on the edge of a 300 and a 250, in my opinion, at 28 inches.
80% let off.
80% let off. That's where I would, this is why I like to have conversations with folks whenever I'm building arrows with them.
Well, it's me. It's me. So just ask me the question, then I'll answer it.
How meticulous are you about your tuning?
Oh, very.
When you say very, what's that mean?
I'm going to go through every step possible.
Okay, so you paper tune, you walk back
tune, bare shaft
tune, you rest tune at yardage.
Yep.
Okay, so you seem like you're a pretty competent person on your skill level on tuning. So I would not be scared to go on the low side of that
300.
A 300. I would definitely. My next question would be, what do you like, or how do you feel about aluminum half outserts versus stainless versus titanium?
I wouldn't have a preference. Whatever you would want to go with.
Okay. And then if you don't have a preference in that, and you're a super tuner, I've encountered these kinds of folks. They don't care about how much money they spend.
Oh yeah, so money's not an issue here.
Titanium, 100%. Titanium, 204, 300, 6 inches up front. Are you shooting lighted knock?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, there it is. I would cut you 28 inches, titanium, half outsert, 6 inches of carbon, A knock lighted, buzz cut 125. we would obviously have to do the
Index.
spacers. Yes. Aerovane 2.
Now, let's say I'm not a super tuner.
If you're not a super tuner,
I just want to get this arrow and I just want to shoot it.
If you're and you're still 80 yards.
Yep.
You're not going to make it. That's the thing. The Buscut is a 2-blade with an open hole, and it's close to 2.25 inch long.
Yeah,
it's a big head.
That makes it tough. Those heads are like, I mean, that thing's like putting a paper airplane on the front of your arrow.
Let's change it to an iron will, because it's just
no, same thing. It end up to be about the same. In some cases, I think Jeremy got everything. I would say the same thing. The only difference is that if he insists on a Buscut, I actually would take any aerovane off and put a 250 spine. I'll go aero concept. I'll absolutely say titanium is a good approach, or maybe aluminum, because the guy's going to lose that thing so fast. It's going to be bad. And that's the condition. I would actually go with a non-airfoil driven head, because at 80 yards, if you don't know how to tune the bow with aerovane with that head, you're not going to make it. You're better off using something like a Blazer or even AAE or even Attack, because if you don't know how to tune that bow, especially on a ginormous 2-blade plus 2-bleeder head, any of those steps are not taken, he won't make the 80 yards to start with.
Sure.
Especially with any aerovane.
Yeah.
That's the reason in so many cases when the customer come by me with something ginormous, say 150 grains, say, and then we're going to get there. I told them, I would build a shaft. You can just slap those Blazer or Attack or AE wing on the back. It'll work, because you don't have to deal with that, because he was on the marginal of shooting over 315 feet per second.
Yeah.
And definitely 250 spine.
If you order that arrow from us and didn't want Aerovane 2, the other option would be the Q2I Fusion vein. Okay, last one. This is just a bonus one. It was texted to me, so let me pull it up here. Tony, if you're listening, this is for you. So this is the whole thing. We're going, what is the ideal target arrow setup, bow and arrow, with a 60-pound draw weight and 75% let off? So recommend a bow and recommend an arrow. This doesn't have to be an Exodus arrow. So anything's on the table.
So 60,
what was the draw length?
60 pounds.
Draw
length. He's short, 27 and a half.
Oh, that was a good
okay. Next question.
First of all, you say 3D. You say 3D.
Target.
You see the ASA target, IBO, or quote unquote paper, or you're talking the European, because the European maximum is 80 meters. That's different than, say, target 20 yards, because me and Jeremy just do the NFAA. That's perfectly target. But believe me, when you do the French or do the Swedish shoot, when you're doing that 95 meters, it's a whole different ballgame.
No, this would be strictly just target.
I know, but those are all target.
I mean, like IBO,
ASA, IBO, tag, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's a 3D shooter. That makes a big difference. So you're wanting us to name a bow?
Yeah, he said, what's the ideal target arrow setup, ideal bow and arrow?
Yeah, but his age and drawing make a big deal on bows, because if he's an old, you see an old guy or young guy, his holding weight is going to make a big difference.
He's 37.
Oh, yeah, I would go with something like the Danny Irving do, or 60 pound. That's different.
I know exactly what bow I'd go with.
Let's do it.
You first, Dan.
100%. The new Shoot Down Pro, PSE. It's a longer axle to axle. Granted, he is a short draw length, but it is probably one of the faster bows that are out there, because every ASA and IBO guy, if he's an unknown guy, wants speed. 100% wants speed.
So you said the Dominator Duo?
No, Shoot Down Pro.
Shoot Down Pro. Okay, Shoot
Yeah.
Down Pro.
I think it's a 36-inch axle to axle.
I'm pulling it up now. So what's the arrow build for that bow, that scenario?
That's where I would have to ask him. What do you want? Do you want line cutters? Do you want something to fit, squeeze in? It's wide open because you see guys shooting a 204. You see him shooting a standard 246. You see him shooting 22s, 23s, all the way up to, I think a couple years ago, Jack Wallace was shooting 25s on the IBO course.
Right,
So,
but IBO can go to do 27. I know FITA, FNAA, the maximum is 23. But then, of course, at the same time, we need to think about it. What class is it in? Because see, the moment when he's able to do a full, say, 3-bar setup compared to a hunter class with the front bar, back bar combined.
It'd be a hunter class.
Hunter class, that means a maximum 16-inch all the way around. That changes a lot because then the bow should not be too long. I mean, something like that depends on where. If you want to win, I mean, I would go with something like the 2018 Perform X. That's one of the bow, or the original Matthew Apex 7 because it's so freaking forgiving. I mean, the Hoyt actually have a good bow on it, like the Triumph. Is it the Podium? That's a fantastic bow. I mean, most of the problem already taken care of. I won't touch the new Hoyt. I mean, with the 26-inch draw, he needs the speed. I would go with, for everything around, I would go with a 3164 shaft on the OD. Then depends on his speed. I mean, if you want lightness, well, go with something like the PS23 on Black Eagle. You want a more durability, you want a more predictability. I think the arrow width, the 3140 would be perfect. 400 spine. And not to mention, I would definitely go light. I would go about 90 grains in the front because see, you got such a stable system. That will be my setup because see, for me, I truly believe when you should target, especially in the environment, I actually prefer 7 to 8% FOC will give you the best. Of course, arrow wing 3 all the way. You can't go wrong with target. Then you're pretty much able to be comfortable 60 yards. You can call that 63 and have likely market we're able to. That's 63 and a quarter yard right there on that sitting though.
So Jeremy, if I say we did this scenario and you asked me that question and I'm him and you said, do you want line cutters? Do you want to slide them in there? And my response to you is I want to win. I'm new to target. I don't know what I should be shooting for. You shoot some target yourself. I know your partner. What are you going to recommend to me? I want to win. That's it. That's my answer.
Well, I need to retract my Shoot Down Pro since I know you're now shooting hunter class.
Okay.
When you say target, I'm thinking 18 meters, maybe do some USA archery outdoor on paper.
Man, I'm a hunter, and that's all I know. So
okay, all right. So with that, I mean, you could go to like the new Matthews TRX 34 would be a stellar,
that's what he has. So that's good to know.
I mean, don't change it. And he's in hunter class. So one thing with hunter class is you have to have a screw-in point in the IBOs. So here's where I would throw out, maybe shoot like a gold tip 22, super light, and then throw the destroyer tip in the front.
Oh yes.
I got one of those right here.
Yeah, the destroyer kit. If you are to destroy people and win, that's it, man. The destroyer kit. I mean, there's a few guys who have it. They absolutely love it.
And here's what the destroyer kind of looks like. You don't need to see the weight, but it's a 6mm point.
With a 45-degree shoulder on a 2264, which is 9mm. So you got 1.5 millimeter of surrounding space.
So you're looking at
squeeze it in.
Yeah. And God forbid you need to annihilate the back end of all your buddy's shafts, because that's definitely going to do it. And these come in either titanium or stainless steel. So, and it's 60 pounds in hunter class. Your max yardage is 35 pounds or 35 yards. So you want an arrow that's going to shoot flat
Yeah,
as
you
you
saw
can.
one pin all the way. That's
Yeah,
the reason
so
I would build it. I would build the titanium, definitely 6-inch, but even 4-inch in the front. On a
yeah,
20, say the guy's a 27-inch draw, that's a 26-inch arrow for sure. Pull the arrow back, get a mini overdraw over your wrist. Now we're talking, because you don't have broadhead tuning issue. That thing is going to destroy.
and I'm always a sucker for putting clear nocks and clear veins on a 3D arrow
Can't see
because
them.
they just disappear.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those. I mean, people don't understand that when you go to the target, the entire environment is so different because your objective is different. It doesn't mean the penetration as the arrow don't fall down. You're all good. But at the same time, you also have to squeeze others. Lo and behold, people don't understand when you shoot a normal PS23 or something like a 8.9. Is it 8.9 or 9.2? 9.3 from Goldtip. Those are 23 classes. The moment you touch the front end, the arrow is gone. With the arrow concept, because of secondary tubing, you will survive it. And most people don't understand, if that's slightly nicked, your next one is going to off at least, you're not going to hit the 11 ring. You'll be lucky. You will lucky hit the 8. I mean, the worst, and then on top of that, the knock conditions and also concentric contraction, and that wind is going to hurt you. But see, 35 is not going to be the case. But if you look at most of the course, when they put that target all the way down in the valley and the wind just swoof coming up, you don't think that wind is important? You haven't played the game long enough.
Yeah. Well, Tony, I hope that helps you out. So I have
Tell Tony, give me a call.
Yeah, I will.
No, honestly, because I sent out some sample shafts for a gentleman, and there are some gold tip 22s in there, and some 3D HVs that are super light, and another standard diameter that's super light. If he wants to shoot 100 class, you got to have a screw-in point anyway. So
sure.
Yeah, that was so fun because see, the moment you build it correctly, able to do that, just like I do I help 2 ladies out in both Indiana. They saw hawk that IBO number 1 and 2 for the last 12 years. It's either Irene or it's Chris. Is it? Oh, I forgot. God, I'm funny. Whatever. I would work at both husbands. They are number 1, number 2, just like that. And for them, it's 35 yard, 1 pin. Go for it. 11 ring.
Heck yeah. Jeremy, I think you've actually talked to him before. Maybe. But anywho's, so I have 2 more questions, and I'm going to direct one to Dorge, and I'm going to direct one to Jeremy. Jeremy, I'm going to ask you this. This is something that people ask me a lot, and they're like buying a new sight, and they don't know whether or not they should shoot a 0.019 pin or a 0.010 pin. And what is the difference between those, and what do you recommend for what scenario?
So the 19 thousandths pin obviously is just a heavier, thicker pin, and then your 10 thousandths pin is a thinner pin, and that is that's a hard one to really. I don't like to sway people when it comes to their pin size because everybody's different. I just bought the Fast Eddie XL with the 3 vertical pins because I'm a vertical pin guy. I got a 19 thousandths on the top pin and 2 10 thousandths because the animal's closer. I can stand a bigger pin, and it doesn't bother me. But if I'm shooting a 19 thousandths pin at 60 yards, I don't like that because it just takes up
too much of the target.
It takes up too much of the target. You know, me growing up southwestern Pennsylvania, that I was always taught to aim for a hair, not aim for a region. So I try to pick out a finite spot on that animal. And with a 19 thousandths pin at 60 yards on a bull elk, granted, you got something the size of this computer screen that I can hit, but I try to keep it as small as possible. Sure. And then you also have to take into account where that sight housing lands. If you have a fixed position like a direct mount, But like on the new bows, the Picatinny stuff from Hoyt, and then the Matthews with the bridge lock stuff, you can move it. Well, I don't know on the Picatinny stuff, you can't really move it in and out. It's kind of like a fixed uh, sight. But like if you have anything with a sight bar that you can slide back and forth, you can adjust that to fit your shooting style, whether you like a big peep, little peep, all that good stuff. So there's more than just the pin size. Because if you do like your sight pushed way out as far as it can go, you can stand a little bit bigger of a pin. Where if you like it real sucked up and close to the bow, like I kind of like it close to the bow. I would rather have a bigger peep, smaller pins, and the sight sucked up as close to the bow as possible.
Okay.
So.
All right. So Dorge, I have one more question, and it's in regards to lighted nocks with all of the options available with specific to color. If I'm not trying to customize my setup to match anything, what's the best color? What should I go for in color?
Okay, actually, this answer was not answered by me, by one of the optometry professor in Indiana University. Indiana University, one of the best optometry school. So since I graduated from there, I usually have able to ask. I apologize, I forgot the professor's name, but this is the bottom line. The best color under all conditions is red nut with the red LED. That's no bull, unless you're colorblind. If the sun comes out, this is the sequence. Orange would be less bright. The moment direction comes in, this is sequence. The moment the least amount affected by direct sunlight is yellow, green, blue, clear. The moment just like you shoot a green knock in the middle of morning, when the sun comes up, the green knock's gone, the blue knock is gone, the clear knock is gone. The yellow you barely can see, the orange you can see a little bit better, the red is the best. So how come people say green knock they can see the best? Because they keep on thinking the sight pin of green pin. As long as there's no direct sun, you have shade, green is better than red because it's more defined. The moment there's no visible light, the absolute best is blue and white. White light is the best if you shine on something and look for reflection. Red is the worst. So why do we still offer the yellow and the orange? The orange is best for any background that's orange, which is your Africa hunt. And there's nothing beats dark night on ice. That's the yellow. So if you are hunting morning, you only have one choice, red on red. You want peripheral vision, orange. Actually, if you look at a car, you pretty much got all your answers. What's the tail light color? Red on red under any condition. If you look at a car driving towards you with a headlight on in bright daylight, you won't notice it. Let me give you some basic concept. A headlight is about 1.5 million lux. The tail light is 6,500 lux. So you need that 1.5 million lux to shine on something and reflect. That's the reason at night you need a white light. But peripheral vision is orange, orange, and yellow. That's the reason your side lights are always orange and yellow. Do you see that all happening? Yeah. And then at midnight, if you look at a police car, the red is not what's visible, it's the blue and white light that pierce through the light. So if you hunt in a moonless light, the best color is blue. But then you think about power consumption. On the visibility, a white light is only about 2 to 5% of a red light into a human eye in total brightness. So that pretty much your sequence. If you hunt evening only, go for green. If you hunt morning and all the time, go for red. If you like some people like pig hunts and so on, red and green only. If you don't indoor, you can put a white light and then you have any color to be cute. If you go for Africa hunt, absolutely orange, no way around it. Because orange on the desert, that orange red sand, that orange nut will light up the best. It's orange nut with orange LED. Is there some difference? If you're red, blue, red, green, colorblind, then what you want is a yellow LED with a green light. Okay. Otherwise, for some people that is total just red colorblind, then you're looking at the blue LED with a white light or the blue LED with a green light. Those are what comes in because a lot of people do not recognize they are colorblind because they have looked at that for the whole life. How
Right.
do they know they are until they show them a colorblind test? And yes, you cannot go wrong with red on red, even if you're colorblind, because they prove that red on red even function if you're colorblind. Otherwise, the taillight is useless, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Which also shows if you drive enough and you notice that the moment somebody loses the hood on the green light, the moment you turn green on the broad daylight, you cannot see it until it's directly under the light. That's sort of another proof that your green light will be bleed out by the sun.
Yeah, that's true. It's hard to see.
Yeah, actually, I wrote the whole article. If you want to refresh it, it's on our website under Firenock Color Choices.
Oh, awesome. Well, I didn't know that, but I'm glad I asked you that question.
Yeah, it is very technical, and most people think it's a preference. No, it's not.
Well, that kind of
actually
sucks for me because
functional.
I like green.
Yeah, a green light is if you hunt in the morning, the moment the sun comes up, like you hunt half an hour before sun, it's beautiful. When the sun comes up, you can't find that green. It's gone. Unless you shoot in the shade.
I usually miss my morning hunts because I sleep in.
So green is okay for you too.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, that was a fun one. We got through an hour pretty quickly. Anyone that wants to get a hold of Jeremy, his details will be in the show description. Dorge and I's are always in the show description. Ask these guys as much questions as you guys have. And until next time, we'll talk to you guys. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks. Take it easy, guys.